I've found in recent years that I'm really passionate about creativity and about how people see themselves as creatives and the way that we get in our own way when it comes to creative endeavors, the stories that people tell us about ourselves that we believe, and then the stories that we tell ourselves. And there's no wrong way to be creative.
Running a retail business doesn't have to be so hard. Welcome to the Creative Shop Talk podcast, the go-to podcast for creative shop owners, studio owners, and independent retailers. I'm your host, Wendy Batten, retail business coach and mentor. Each week, I'll share simple, proven business strategies, inspiring stories from fellow retailers, and advice from industry experts. Together, we're going to work to find the success you want from your retail business with more profits in your till and a little more joy in your life. Hey there, friends, and welcome to the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Batten, and today I'm just over the moon excited to introduce to you a guest that's going to just blow your socks off. I don't know how to explain. My friend and mentor, Marian Parsons, you may know her as Miss Mustard Seed, is joining us here today on the podcast. I have been asking podcast listeners for a while now inside my inner circle, in my free Rockstar group, and on my webpage, who do you want me to interview? Who do you want to hear on the podcast? And without a doubt, and over again, I kept hearing Marian's name. So we finally got our schedules together. We were able to connect. We sat down. We had a conversation, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her if you are not familiar with her, or so you can hear her business journey if you are. So Marian has an incredible CV, if that's what we want to call it, of business skills, and she's going to share with us today her business journey. Again, like many of my listeners and myself included, it's almost like an accidental entrepreneur. She just kept stepping into different things and following her heart and her dreams of her business. And what she has grown in her business is just incredible. So I've listed off, this is really a funny part. I've tried to do this intro so many times. This is really kind of funny. It's like take 420, because Marian's list of what she does now, not even like all the things she has done, is incredible. She's a blogger, she's an artist, she's a painter, she's a product designer, she creates original art, and she's been featured in a million magazines and books. She created the Miss Mustard Seeds milk paint line, which was sold, is still continued to be sold all over the world. There's just so many things. She is the host of the amazing podcast called Creative Exponent, and also does business coaching within that group as well. She's the author of 2 books. I mean, it just goes on and on. Marian is one to follow if you are not following her already. And she does this all with such heart and grace, and just so well done. Marian does things so amazing. And I've had the pleasure of working with Marian intimately. I was on her business team for the Miss Mustard Seeds milk paint line for many years. We actually met in 2012. When I looked at that date, I was like, oh my goodness, we've been friends since 2012. I was super intimidated to meet her. I literally like bumped into her at a blog conference. And I don't mean like casually, I mean like literally like bumped into her. It was kind of funny. And, I thought, she was one of those bloggers I was following. And to be honest, she's just like all of us, building a business and, doing it with passion and purpose. And she's just amazing. And I've run out of adjectives, I guess, to describe Marian. So I'm just going to share these really quick. We do have a great conversation, but we didn't have time to cover all of the questions and everything that everybody's been asking me. So Marian does so many things so beautifully, and everything that she does, I feel like she's trying to inspire other people to do and to encourage them. She's teaching people to be braver. And I believe that in so many ways, because I've seen it in action, with business when we were running the paint line together, when we were, we've had the opportunity to travel together. I've had the opportunity to travel to trade shows with Marian and conferences. And also I've traveled to Pennsylvania to her studio, her old studio where she used to live, and her home and her family, and meet everybody. And everything she does is amazing. I truly do. I truly mean that. And not to put her just totally on this pedestal, but watch how she runs her business and her life. It's been a pleasure to be a friend and have her as a mentor. We had the opportunity to travel together to France and to Italy. We've traveled intimately, stayed together, taught workshops together. It's just been such a pleasure. So I'm going to just share 3 quick things and then we'll get to the interview, but 3 things, and we didn't have time to talk about them all during the podcast. And one of the first things is boundaries. Marian has taught me in my business journey about boundaries, and she does this with grace. And we do talk about this a little bit in the podcast, but she gets a lot done, and she does that with her boundaries. And I try to emulate and learn from her in that way as well too. Another thing that I have learned over the years is to use my good stuff. I know that's a silly thing to say that I took away, and I was trying to think of just 3 quick things I could share with you. But in life and in business, it can be beautiful and simple. And Marian I've used my china and my silver, and I just try to surround myself with just simple pleasures and beautiful things. And it sounds really, really kind of like a funny thing to take away from a business, but it's always a good reminder. And I don't know, it just makes my days easier. When I'm getting a little overwhelmed or overcomplicating my life, I think, no, Wendy, just simplify and it can be beautiful and easy. And I learned that from Marian. And the last part, well, I learned a million things from Marian, but the third thing that I wanted to share with you guys that I really learned from Marian, and I know this is a long intro, guys, we're getting there, I promise. But the third thing I learned from Marian that I think is really important is to align yourself and your business and surround yourself with people that have the same values as you, that do business with heart and soul. And we don't have to do all the crazy things. We don't have to follow the pack. We can do our own thing. And this is really an important piece of what I've learned from Marian over the years, and how she runs her business. She looks at it from the CEO level, from eyes. And we do talk about this a little bit and touch on this in the podcast, in our interview. But when I say I learned this from her, I really want to remind everybody to think about surrounding yourself and aligning yourself with people that have the same values as you. We don't have to step out of alignment, I guess, is what I want to share. So let's get to the podcast and our interview, Marian and I. So it's Marian Parsons and I have a chat. It's a bit of a long one. I'm apologizing right now, but it's so worth it. Can't wait to hear your feedback. So, hi, Marian.
Hi.
So happy to have you here on the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I am super excited to have you here. I've introduced you and all your millions of things that you're doing, but I've had so many people ask me to have you on the podcast. So thank you for being here. I know your time is very valuable and you have a million things on the go.
Of course.
Can we start a little tiny bit talking about, just want to share a little bit of your business journey. I know it's big and vast, so I was almost hesitant to ask you that, but it's so inspiring to see all the things that you're doing and all the sort of the journey that you've come on. And can you share a little tiny bit about that?
Yeah, well, I started my business in 2008, and it's a horrible time to start a business. If you can remember what was going on with the economy and everything, horrible time to start a business. I had a 4-month-old and an almost 2-year-old. So again, horrible time to start a business in life. I had no money to start a business, and I also had no experience running a business. So if you're someone who's like, I have all these things stacked against me, I have no business starting a business, then you're in good company with me, where I totally get where you are. So I started a business really out of, it was almost out of desperation. We really needed to make some extra money. We were living on a very tight budget and, growing kids. We needed more diapers now that we had two babies and all that stuff. And we were really feeling the stress of that, just living kind of check to check. So painting murals seemed like a place where I could start, that I didn't need a lot of money. Now, the funny thing about starting a mural business is I also didn't have any art experience. It really was just, I think I could do this. And I painted a mural in my son's nursery. So therefore, I think I can do this in other people's houses. It was so, if somebody came to me with that business plan, I would be like, bad plan.
I had no idea that you had no art experience at that time because of your art experience. That's hilarious. You're right. It's like, yeah, no.
I mean, other than just decorative painting for myself. Now I had studied independently, and just painted for myself, but never went into other people's houses to paint. So it was such a step of faith, such a gamble, such a just, one of those just ridiculous things that ended up working out okay. So I did decorative painting and murals, and that sort of moved me into buying and selling furniture. I refinished it, painted it, all of that. And about a year in, I felt like, you know what, I don't want to do murals all the time. I also don't want to feel like I have to do decorative painting on every piece that comes through. Sometimes I like a piece as it is, or I just want to paint it without any flourishes on it. So that's when I sort of rebranded my business as just antiques, home decor, painting, that sort of thing. And that's when I started my blog. And it just was it was this evolution. It was as most small businesses are, you kind of start out one way, and it just went through this evolution of selling out of a local shop on consignment, and then starting to sell on my own at local markets, and kind of finding where my stuff sold best. And in the blog world, I was just compulsively sharing my journey and what I was working on. And it was at a time when blogging was very, it was cute little, your little housewives sharing what they're doing. It wasn't like this super serious business. And so there wasn't any pressure to make it anything special. It was just about sharing.
Were you blogging before you were selling furniture? Because you were selling furniture, like you said, I know it like Lucketts, and you had like a little booth space there, and you had your room and all that there. Was that, which came first, the blogging or the selling?
It actually happened right at the exact same time, the same month that I did my first fair at Lucketts. And this was not the Lucketts Spring Market. It's called the Old Lucketts Fair. And there was a little section for antiques. It's really a craft fair, but it had a section for antiques. The month that I sold there, I had just started my blog about 2 weeks prior. So I did bring business cards. And I was telling people to go check out my blog, and I would be sharing furniture makeovers and stuff on the blog if they wanted to check it out. So yeah, I mean, I was totally flying by the seat of my pants. It was just...
Which a lot of people will be surprised to hear that because of where you've landed, but also that's the entrepreneur. What do we call it? Accidental entrepreneurs. We just keep trying new things, and So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's so interesting. Yeah.
No, that's okay. So and I had some really, just really good breaks along the way. I think a huge thing is I had people who believed in me, and I took that seriously, and I made sure that I lived up to their expectations. And I think that I can see in the early years, people taking me under their wing, people taking a risk on me to sell my stuff in their store, to use me as a picker or furniture supplier for them. I can see how that it gave me confidence, and it helped me to grow as a creative, as a designer, as an artist. And it just pushed me to be better. So through a series of events, I ended up selling as a vendor at the Lucketts Store, which just look it up. It's just like, it's one
Yeah.
of the dream places to be. A lot of designers from the DC area shop there, super high rate of turnover when it comes to product. So it was a great place to run a business out of. Plus, I'm working with people who are so good at what they do. They're so talented and business savvy. And so, man, I was just like, I'm just going to be a sponge while I'm here.
That's so it's fun. I have a funny story. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the first time I went to Luckett's, when I came to visit you and stay with you, and I stopped at Luckett's on my way. My friends and I
Mhm.
and I always wanted to go. And this to me is what like a really good, amazing retail space like that is can do for you. I cried when I walked in there. I was like
Yeah.
really teared up because it does feel so good and you can tell it's so professional and it's interesting. Like, I mean, I cried because it was so, I mean, I'd seen pictures and it just lives up to, it's so cool. And that's so amazing that, and again, that you felt so surrounded by other people doing like, the, what are the rising tide? Like, everybody, you're absorbing their information and being in such a great place. So how wonderful is that? I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And then, so it was during that time my blog started to really pick up and it became the main part of my business. It was the main source of revenue. It was my main money maker. And I had to sit down and really I talk about this a lot when I talk about business, about making numbers based decisions, because when it's your business, it's so easy to be emotional about it. And I was very emotional about Luckett's. I loved being there. I mean, it was really a dream. I went to shop at Luckett's the first time, like it was in the very early years when it opened, and I was like 21 or 22 years old. And I just remember loving the place even then. So being a vendor there was like such a dream experience. But I looked at my numbers and I had been spending about 75% of my time on shopping for pieces, redoing pieces, driving them down to Luckett, staging my space, all of that. And only about 30% of my revenue was coming from Luckett's. Now that was like profit, pure profit was
Yeah.
coming. So not revenue, but profit was coming from Luckett's and retail. And the other 70% was coming from my blog opportunities and freelance writing and photography. So I had to shift gears and make it more about blogging. And that's when I really kind of went all in on the blog. And man, we were just talking about this before we started recording, that I'm even in that place now. Through so many steps of my business, I've had to step back and assess, okay, I'm doing too many things. How do I manage it? How do I decide what's going to be valuable, what I need to let go of? Because when you have a business that's going well, you end up with there's a lot of good things to choose from. So you've got to pick what are going to be the best things when it comes to profit, when it comes to just fulfillment and filling your days with the things you want to be doing. So I've done that sort of all along the way, picking up various things and then putting other things down when it's time, and not being afraid of change, not being afraid to continue to grow and evolve, which can be challenging when you've got a customer base or an audience base who you get conflicting messages from all the time. They want you to do the same thing over and over and over again, but
Right.
yet they also want you to be doing new things.
They
And
don't want,
so it's,
yeah, you can't get complacent. So,
yes.
let's talk about that. And part of your business journey was, so I've had the pleasure of working with you through a lot of this business
Yeah.
journey, and part of that was with creating the paint line and selling the paint. That was a big change when you stepped away from that. And I'm not trying to rush your journey, but it is just on that topic and like dissecting that a little bit, making big changes, right? And making big
Yeah.
things that work. We have to we have to honor what's working for us too, right? Like, I've made
Yeah.
big changes as well too in business over the years, and it's it's hard. It's not always easy. That wasn't an easy decision. I know I was there with you as well, but
Yeah, it was really hard to let it go because I loved the paint line. I loved the retailers. I loved the customers. It was profitable. So it was really hard to let it go. And I think for a few years, I knew you really need to let this go because there are just other things that you want to be doing. You're kind of, I got to the point with furniture. I still love working on furniture, but I've literally painted, refinished, upholstered, slip covered thousands of pieces of furniture. I didn't even count, and I don't know if I could go back and count them all. You only saw a portion of them on the blog because I just didn't have time to share them all on the blog. So I got to the point where I'm like, I feel like I've kind of conquered this area and I've done it a lot. And I feel like I'm doing it just because it's what I do now, not because I'm really loving it and passionate about it. It just got a little boring for me. And also just, the practicality of it, hauling furniture, bending over it and painting all the time. Like my back hurt all the time. I just really needed to kind of shift gears.
Well, and we can't do all the things all the time. That is something that
Yeah.
I know, you and I have talked about, like, just like if we want to do well at what lights us up and make profit, we do have to make those shifts of passion. I call it shifts of passion, but I'm like you. I tell everybody you have to listen. You have to put your CEO hat on and make decisions by numbers. But it's not all just about numbers. Like you just said, the paint line was making money. It was profitable, but it was time consuming, and it was going to have to make some bigger time commitments for you. And the same as painting furniture and lugging in and going, and that being at Lucketts, all of those things we have to look at. They were great, right? I mean, they were
Oh,
all
yeah.
things and enjoyable at the time, but I think we do get, I think that's how businesses evolve and journeys evolve. Like, I don't,
Yeah. Well, especially as an individual, it's like I'm not a company
right.
is this engine and this, you know, group of all these people who were putting their energy and ideas together. It was kind of just me. And there was just a point where I'm like, I love milk paint. I love painting furniture and all that. I don't want that to be what I'm doing all the time. And I also just, we moved. I didn't have the space anymore to be buying and selling furniture all the time. And so it was just time for a change. And it was hard to let go because that was kind of that was the identity that I had built in my business and in the, space of social media and the blog. People knew me as the furniture girl, as the milk paint girl and all that. And so it was hard to say, hey guys, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm doing something different. And some readers and followers, were good with that. And they're just continuing to follow me on the journey. And other people, I still get comments that are like, we want you to do furniture all the time. It's like, well, there are a lot of people who do furniture all the time. So
yeah, and you don't live here, so I live in. Exactly. I don't mean it that way, but you still do share. So I think you've done amazing. I think it's amazing watching you grow and not grow, but just move from one beautiful thing to another in your life and your business as your business evolves, blogging all the way kind of consistently, but now it's art. You've taken everybody on a journey. You've inspired. I don't know how many people have bad art out like I do. I was going to bring mine in, show you, but
oh yeah.
you've inspired, with your art lessons and your own art lessons. I mean, you just taught, you evolved, and I've seen so many, and I've got lots of friends who are trying it now. I think that is so amazing. That's part of an amazing. It must feel really good. I don't know if it does. Maybe it's not good to see everybody's bad art everywhere either. But you inspire creativity. You have the podcast now. You're doing a podcast all about create.
Yeah.
Share a little bit about the podcast, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think so just to kind of speak on that, a lot of people will say like, you got to pick a lane, or gosh, you do so much, or what are you doing, and I feel like the thread that ties it all together is, first of all, it's like what I'm excited about at the time. But I think the real thread that ties it all together is that I love encouraging and inspiring others. And so whether that's teaching them how to and that's why the blog is great for me, teaching them how to refinish furniture, teaching them how to do upholstery, encouraging someone, hey, you can make your own slipcover. Here's a really easy way to do it. To I started oil painting, and here are the things that I was really nervous about. And if those are things you're nervous about too, like let's work through those together, and taking people on my journey. I think that that's sort of what is my strength. And so I feel like it doesn't matter what I'm teaching or writing about or sharing about, as long as I sort of stay in that lane. That's my lane, is encouraging and inspiring. And it's going to be in a variety of things.
It is. It's that is so true. Well, your first book, I don't know if it's your first book, but Inspired You is the first.
That was my first book,
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, right there, it goes back to what's the name of your book? Inspired You, so it's still, it just sums it up, because that's what you've been doing for so many people in so many areas, like, and in just, I think it's being creative and just everything, right? I mean, just being brave and taking chances. And I feel like you've helped my journey, because it's all about me now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
But my art and no, but it's like, I feel, and I just know, knowing that, the retailers that are listening, and just being brave and trying new things. I mean, you've inspired me to do so many things. Like, we could have a whole hour-long series on, or a whole series on the things that you've inspired me to do, but to be, and it's being brave, and whether that's with art or paint or business, just all the different things. So it all does come together. And I do see the thread there with you, and you do it so beautifully, with all of the things that you do.
And the podcast is really an extension of that. I've found in recent years that I'm just really passionate about creativity and about how people see themselves as creatives, and the way that we get in our own way when it comes to creative endeavors, the way that we, the stories that people tell us about ourselves that we believe, and then the stories that we tell ourselves. And so the podcast has really become, a discussion all about that, again, with the aim to encourage people, to have them leave feeling just ready to go do something, fulfilling to them, that's using their own creative gifts, whether that's in mathematics or in drawing or music or writing or photography. Like, there's so many, there's no like wrong way to be creative. So
I'll tell you,
and fun.
Several of my inner circle members, my retailer inner circle members, have told me recently, when I started asking them, what we wanted, that the only two podcasts they listen to, I'm so flattered by this, is like mine for the business, like for retail business stuff, and yours because they're creatives trying to run shops, or it's just a good. I was so flattered by that. I was like, oh, that makes me so happy, but because just again, to just how you. I always want to say, like, that podcast to me, when I listen to your with Shauna, is Shauna Parker now, right? I always want to say Shauna West, but it's a Shauna Parker.
We need to change the intro.
I know, right? So, well, and I've asked Shauna to join me here on the podcast as well too soon. But both of you together are so encouraging to, again, just to do your own thing, I guess, and what lights you up, and don't be worried about whatever everybody else is doing, or what everybody else, the stories that they tell you is exactly what that to me is very freeing for a lot of entrepreneur type people, not just artists type, but because we say creative and it's almost like a broad word, like what does that even mean? But creative with your merchandising, creative with how you serve people, creative with, how you market, like just being creative and doing what feels good to you is really important. And I applaud you for always inspiring me to feel that way about, like, just do it your own way, with everything, painting furniture and working however we do it. One thing that I get asked a lot about, or I got asked a lot to ask you about, and one thing that I have asked you about in the past many times is, how do you have so many things that you're doing. We've talked about you're doing your art and blog, and there's just your book. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I know it took you forever running when you had the paint line for, just so many things. How do you stay on top of it all? And I know that you have some really great boundaries. And I love how you do that and how you exemplify that. How do you stay on top of it all and not feel like the plates are all spinning all the time? And
Well, I think the important thing to say right off the get go is I don't. I often, it like whatever kind of overwhelm you're feeling, or anyone else who runs a store, runs a creative business, or just like runs a house, or you're just like, you're just trying to run yourself. And you feel like you have too many things going on and you can't do them all well. I'm perpetually there, perpetually in that place where I feel like I've a little too much. I've got to simplify things. And I think the important thing is that I realize that, and I pretty regularly reassess what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And that's one reason why I ended up selling the milk paint line, is I realized it. I felt like I kind of had to, like I was just stuck in it. And I went on a walk one day and I heard a podcast that wasn't at all about selling a business or anything, but what they were talking about just kind of like made me have this thought of, man, I've built something that is valuable and maybe it'll be valuable to someone else. And that's kind of where I came to the conclusion that I could sell the business, which I had never, if I had strategically thought I could build a business to sell, I would have focused on that a little bit, a little bit better. But yeah, I think I take stock of what's going on very regularly. I'll do like a creative retreat or just take an afternoon, and I do a lot of just journaling, and which sounds like very, uppity, but it's very, and it's not elegant. I just do a brain dump and write down a lot of stuff, what I'm thinking, and I look for patterns. What am I constantly struggling with? Okay, then I need to deal with that. Maybe that's something I need to let go of. I look at the numbers and I make those numbers-based decisions. And I also look at, what am I running to all the time? And that's what I found with art. It started as a hobby and it's become this like monster of a
you
passion.
ran right into that.
I collect vintage art supplies. I am just like fanatical about art books.
Yeah.
It's really funny. I want to paint all the time. It's like my reward. I really, really enjoy it, and drawing and studying and taking art classes. And so I'm just like, well, if this is going to take up this much of my time, I need to find a way to incorporate it into my business. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't do it all well. Sometimes when I'm doing really great in business, then I'm like, eating in a way that's not, I don't want to say
kids, and then
I don't want to say like I eat garbage, but I don't pay attention to what I'm eating. I don't exercise, or then there are times when I'm like really great about preparing great meals and eating really well and tracking my calories and getting my 10,000 steps and all of that. And then my business is a little bit slower. So it's all, you can't do it all. You can't. So you have to kind of, it goes through seasons, it goes through cycles. There are times when I manage it all really, really well, and then other times when I don't. I think the other thing that's been really important for me is I treat it as my business. And that can sometimes be hard when your business is, sitting down at a computer and editing photos, or it's sitting down writing a blog post, or it's in my studio looking like I'm just doodling or reading a book or playing with paint, but it's a part of my job. And so I say that to my boys a lot, actually, when they interrupt me when I'm working. I'm like, I know this doesn't look like a job, but I'm doing my job right now. And I need you to respect that and let me have that quiet time to work. So I'm pretty protective about it. And I treat things like posting on social media and writing on my blog and taking pictures and all of that as a part of my job. So that's why I'm pretty consistent and disciplined about doing it, even when I maybe don't feel like doing it, or it's crunch time or whatever. I treat it as my job and I take it seriously.
Yeah, well, definitely you take it seriously.
I do.
I was like, I know how you work, but so a couple of things that I've noticed that you might not. I mean, that I'm sure you do, but that I have taken away, and if I can share these, because
Yeah.
it is, you have set boundaries. You're very good at, and I don't know, this has really been helpful for me and I pass it along all the time, but even just answering emails at certain times of the day or blogging at certain times, I'm like not going to be, like I used to send you a lot of emails and I knew like if I didn't get an answer back today, I knew like, nope, Marian does her emails for, that type of business at this time. I'll get an answer. You always answer, but it's very boundary driven. And I always
Yeah.
respected that. I always thought that was so amazing. It didn't have to be an instantaneous reply to somebody's DM or text or email. So I love that boundary that you put in. I have that all that I use that as well too. I do email like once a day now. That's
Yeah.
it. I can't do it all day long or it's forever going to be somebody else's crisis is going to run my day or somebody else's,
Yes.
catastrophe, or problems or whatever. The other thing, and you had touched on this just a little bit, but another thing that I have found personally super helpful, you did go when you first started this little inkling, and I was part of that when you got that podcast, like, oh, that little inkling of and you were really conflicted. And as we all get to these like, what direction am I doing? Is my business going in? Where are we headed? What do I want fresh and new? Right. Because we want fresh and new to keep it fresh. And you went away for a few days. You call it your creative retreat.
Hmm.
And if I'm totally throwing you under the bus here, like you created this amazing document, and I'm going to totally share it with my listeners if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You created this amazing document that really just sort of helps walk through the questions. So when you went away by yourself, and you just told me you're finally going to get to do it again after all the
Yes.
not being able to travel for a while, but you're going to go again and do it. And again, sort of touching on that journaling and thinking about and looking at the numbers and what do I really want from my business? Because we all want different things and success is different for all of us, whether that, whatever that looks like. That um, you call it the creative, what is it called? The creative journal or prompt
You know what?
or
I don't know what it, yeah, I don't
yeah,
know.
I will share it. We'll share it in the show
Personal
notes.
creative retreat, something. I
Yeah,
don't
it is so
know.
good. And again, you're probably like, I'm just throwing it under the bus, but it was so helpful even for like I've used that several times.
I
Um,
still use it. That's
yeah,
why I shared it, is because those were the questions I was habitually asking myself, not always all at once, because all at once can be kind of overwhelming, but those were the things I was asking myself pretty regularly.
yeah.
And even adding new ones in over the years of, but man, yeah, I went on that creative retreat and it wasn't anything big. It
You
was
came
just,
back on fire.
I
I
did.
remember that. You came back with a plan, man.
I really did. That was my first one ever. That
Clarity.
was not like, because there's such a difference in going to a blog conference or going to some kind of creative conference or business conference. Those are
Right.
great and they serve a
Yeah.
purpose. They serve a lot of purposes, but it's so different to go somewhere, preferably by yourself or with someone who will give you like hours and hours where you can go be by yourself. And that's what I did. I traveled with a friend. She needed some time away. So we were able to travel together and rent a car together and split the cost of a hotel room. But then during the day, we were completely our separate ways. And then we would meet up for dinner. But I listened to podcasts, I read books, I walked by the ocean, I did sketches, I did paintings, I sat down and asked myself a lot of those questions and I worked on answering them. And yeah, and I came back and also I was off social media, I was off email, I was just checked out and I really did. I came back
Oh,
just
you were on
like,
fire when you came back. And it was
yeah.
exciting. It was exciting to see you come back like from that.
Yeah, it was good. So I would encourage anybody, like however you can do it, even if it's in just a local hotel, I would really encourage you to get out of your space though and get away a little bit just so you don't getting away from your daily routine is really key and getting to a place where like your time is completely your own. You're not, oh, I've got to stop now and go pick up the kids or, whatever.
Yeah, it was really great. I know it was super helpful just in I mean, deciding. So for me, even just what I want to do, what you want from your business. And again, I'll share that link and I could talk about that for hours with you. And I know we've been talking for a long time and I'm so sorry. I promised you wouldn't be this long. I
Oh,
want to
that's
value
okay.
your time. And
I'm a talker. That
I
always
know. Well,
happens to
we're
me.
not a good team because you and I talk all this. This is our fourth hour of the podcast
Yes.
episode now. So no,
here's an intermission for you, and then we'll be back.
Here's an intermission. I will have to have you back on because I have a million other questions. I'm laughing because I'm like thinking like, oh, I have all these other things, but I do want to honor
Do you
your
have any
time.
like quick fire questions that we can answer real quick?
Well, you know what? They're all pretty deep questions, but I do want to ask you. Somebody did ask me how this is totally not, it could be retail related in a way for retailers. Writing your book, is that like a really big undertaking? And I know it is, but is it really scary to write a book or do you just start? That was a question somebody said. Like,
so I've had two different experiences. My first experience writing a book involved a lot. Like literally when I got the contract, Jeff had to take me for a drive because I was crying so hard about it. And it wasn't like happy tears. It was like tears of absolute terror because,
wow.
because I just wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. I was scared of success. I was scared of failure. I was like scared of everything, the process. I was really intimidated by it. And writing that book was hard. It was, I mean, it all came together. It all came out of me, but it was just hard. It was, I felt like I wasn't at home in that process. It was hard for me. So when the book was done, it was like going through like really difficult labor and being like, I don't think I'm ever going to have a child again. This one's enough for me. So that's why I didn't write a book for a long time because I just felt like that was just enough for me. It was a good experience. I was really happy with how the book did, all of that, but I just didn't think I was ready for it. But then a few years ago, I started feeling like, I have another book in me. I think I have several books in me and I've learned so much more from writing regularly on my blog. I think my writing has improved immensely. I mean, I've been writing almost every day for 12 years. So and most of my blog posts are like 1,000 to 3,000 words. So I'm essentially writing a book every few weeks. There's another book. So I just had a lot more experience under my belt. I had more confidence about what I wanted the process to be like and what I didn't. And so when I signed on to write this book, it was a long process, the proposal, and I had several publishers interested in the book, which was exciting and all of that. And when it was picked up and I signed a contract, it was not scary at all. It was super exciting. I was really ready to dive in. I already had like 3 or 4 chapters done. And instead of this, like, okay, I've got to finish it as soon as possible, it was, I'm going to write about 1,000 words a day. And I just it was one of the easiest, huge projects I've ever done because it was done with such, it was just easy. It was fun. I loved it. There would be times I was like giddy about it because I just loved what I was writing. I loved how the pictures turned out. I enjoyed the styling process. I got to shoot a couple of local homes, and that was really fun to include. So the hardest part of that book has been now waiting for it to come out. It doesn't come out till September. And now it's like, man, was I like delusional? Is it really as good as I felt like it is or what, and it's scary to offer what you think is the best you have to offer, the best work you've ever done, and to not know how it's going to do. But I'm just really excited for it to get in people's hands because it felt really good working on it. And so hopefully people will love it. But yeah, it is a scary process. And but I think it's very akin to opening a store or being a vendor for the first time at a market. It's terrifying and exciting, but you learn a lot. And then you know what you want to do the next time,
I was
or,
just gonna say it's
yeah.
everything's scary at first, isn't it? It's all scary. We're all brave souls here trying new
Yes.
things. And that's just
Yes.
the way it is, right? If you're still listening, you're a brave soul because you're trying new things and you're an entrepreneur, and that's just the nature of our
Yeah.
business. Yeah. It was fun watching you create the book. I ordered my book and then I was like realized it said September 7th, I think that's in Canada. I don't know if that's when it
That is September
Yeah.
7th is the
Yeah, because
release.
it said the release date. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually the books ship a little earlier, not always, but I've experienced when I've pre-ordered like on Amazon or something, I'll get it a few days before it actually.
Well, hopefully you'll
releases.
get it sooner than anybody else.
I will.
So
I should
I
be getting
can't
a
wait to see
copy.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I should be getting a copy right from the printer. So I have
Yeah.
one that I can share and talk
So we
about.
should mention that's called Feels Like Home, right? That's the name of the
It
book. The
is.
new one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
called Feels Like Home. You can, if
looks
you
beautiful.
look
Yeah.
on my site and look under books, you'll see it. You can search it on Amazon. There are several books with the name Feels Like Home. So you just have to find the one by Marian Parsons.
With the beautiful cover on it. I fell in love with the cover. I was like, the cover alone has sold me. Well, I mean, of course I'd buy it, but I'm excited to get it. I can't wait. And truthfully, I knew you were writing your book a long time before you had made it official. And I knew what you were writing about and a lot that was going into the book. So it was kind of exciting to see part of that process that you were doing. So I know how hard you worked on that for a long time too. So.
Yeah. And it was hard work. Just because I'm saying it was easy doesn't mean it wasn't hard work. It was a lot of work. But with my first book, I really had trouble juggling family, the book. I had other vendors populate my space at Lucketts because I was having a really hard time doing both. And it was just a hard process. Whereas this one, I found it, I was really able to kind of fit it in and just, and make it all work. And it was just, I really enjoyed it. It's kind of, I hope, so if I do another book, I'm afraid this one has kind of ruined me.
Oh no. Well, you'll have to be as excited about the next book.
That's because it was just so good. It was so easy. And I ended up overwriting, you're given kind of a word count goal of, I think my word count goal is like 40,000. And I ended up overshooting it by a lot, by like thousands of words, because it just was such a enjoyable process. But
so
anyway,
what's next for you then? What's next for Marian Parsons?
Well, I'm still working on, so the birth of a book is a good, it's a 1.5 year process or so from when you start working on it to when it actually comes out. It's going to be almost 2 years, not quite. And so I'm still working on things for the book. I wrote a bonus chapter that's a renter's guide, Feels Like Home renter's guide for people. So we can speak directly to those who don't own their homes and are limited as to what they can do. So I've written that bonus chapter for people who pre-order, and working on marketing for the book and all of that. So I'm still very much working on the book. I'm still working on the blog and always looking for ways I can, just continue to grow. I've been writing, I've like 3,600 blog posts. I've been writing for over 12 years on it. So always thinking about what should I share next? That's kind of another thing that's just always going on. And then my artwork, trying to figure out really where that fits in. I'm getting so much more interest in it from commercial clients who are picking up pieces and selling them, licensing them, and people who are asking me to create custom pieces for them. And the art sales sell out really fast. So I really can't paint fast enough to meet the demand. So I was just telling you, I need to do another creative retreat so I can kind of figure out what's the next thing and how does this all fit together. But that's what I'm always doing.
We'll all be there watching. So we'll all be there watching, cheering you on, getting inspired by you as we always do. So thank you so much, Marian, for being here. I truly appreciate you and our friendship and your time for being here on the podcast with me.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Wendy.
Thanks.
Good to chat with you.
You too. Thanks. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I'm so glad that you were here to join us this week, and I hope you found value in what we're sharing here. I want to remind you that our website has all of the show notes. You can find it at wendybatten.com/podcast podcast. Everything that you need to hear about today's podcast is there. Also an opportunity if you need to reach out to me. If I can support you in any way whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. Make sure you join our Rockstar Creatives Facebook group. We will continue the conversation over there weekly. So thanks for joining us. Please leave a review, subscribe if you can, and never miss an episode. We hope to see you back here again next week. Thanks, my friend. Have a great week.